Some new developments here from a Tesla executive laying out their plan over the next couple of years. And it seems like, at least from their perspective, the future looks pretty bright.
2017, a car costed $86,000 to make, and now it costs him $36,000. So
he was working on exactly how you do the booster. He's able to sequentially focus in a way that I almost find, it's like he's half Vulcan or something out of, he and Dr. Spock.
Zatko is saying that Twitter has misled the public, misled its own board, misled regulators by both fronts, both on the user privacy front as well as national security, by lax security controls.
The whistleblower, how does this potentially change things? Because even if they do reach a settlement, that's not going to stop the whistleblower from saying anything and everything. So,
well, it does devalue the company a bit, and it does show there's a whole lot more that could come out. So I think the whistleblower doesn't help Twitter at all, and it also doesn't help the current management.
In this video, some very bullish news from Tesla, details on Robotaxi timing, the next Tesla vehicle after Cybertruck, epic developments in the Elon Musk versus Twitter trial, insights from the guy writing Elon Musk's biography, and the Tesla bull has a warning for Tesla stock investors. And before we get into it, if you want to instantly unlock over 100 exclusive videos, plus my 10-year Tesla stock price targets and loads of other perks, including optional access to my Tesla valuation model, join our growing community of thousands of supporters on Patreon with the link in the pinned comment. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment-themed merch in the merch store.
Some new developments here from a Tesla executive laying out their plan over the next couple of years. And it seems like, at least from their perspective, the future looks pretty bright.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were at the Goldman Sachs Tech Conference in San Francisco. Martin Viecha, the head of investor relations, speaking there. Business Insider had a source there. They listened to the actual presentation. A few good things, or a few big things to talk about. Mainly, number one, manufacturing. They're able to kind of make these cars cheaper. Mm-hmm. And for them, Viecha said that's like the main way they can drive growth and units there is making the cars cheaper. They said that in 2017, a car costed $86,000 to make, and now it costs them $36,000. So
this is an incredibly compelling insight. In the last few years, the cost for Tesla to produce a compelling electric vehicle has more than halved. Now, this is entirely independent for how much they're charging consumers to purchase the vehicle. That's a separate conversation. But what really matters is the actual cost to produce their vehicles. If you're a longer-term Tesla stock investor, you'll remember some of the absolutely idiotic, let's just be honest, arguments from Tesla bears back in the day, aside from the hilarious "they're going bankrupt" comments. One of the most common things Tesla short sellers and Tesla bears were saying is that the cars are unaffordable, they're luxury vehicles, they're never going to be affordable, look how expensive they are, blah, 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 blah. These people failing to understand economies of scale, the ramping up of a new technology, the fact that there was very little innovation that had happened so far in driving the cost of EVs down. And even today, you'll hear these same kind of comments from people who, well, let's just be honest, don't think and or can't think. It's important to understand the trajectory. It's important to be able to reason. I know sometimes thinking hurts, but it's really important, especially when you're trying to understand this opportunity. There's so many people today who think the idea of Tesla ever selling 20 million vehicles in a year is truly absurd. And the reason, of course, is either A, well, no one's ever had that much market share before, in which case you're dealing with somebody who reasons by analogy. Actually, I don't even think that's reasoning. I think that's just anti-reasoning. And then you'll have the arguments that, well, the costs are never going to be viable. Electric vehicles are expensive. They cost way more than ICE vehicles, blah, 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 blah. These people just fail to understand. The more vehicles Tesla produces, the more battery cells that are being produced, the lower the overall costs. We've got a glimpse into the trajectory of Tesla's cost to manufacture vehicles over the last few years. They've literally more than halved the cost. What are the odds that cost declines will continue into the future? Now, to be clear, there will be diminishing returns at some point in the future. The steep year-over-year declines in cost of manufacturing these vehicles won't be able to be sustained. There's only so much you can reduce cost. There's only so many parts you can produce. There's only so many processes you can delete. But it's very important to understand, we still have a very long way to go with EV costs. I've been saying for a very long time, I personally believe, roughly speaking, the cost of Tesla's vehicles over the next decade, in terms of how much it costs to manufacture, will approximately halve once again. My Patreon supporters who have access to my Tesla valuation model will know exactly what I'm talking about. I have a bunch of assumptions in there, including price points for different generations of vehicles to come out in the future. These numbers were not pulled out of my ass. Over the longer term, and these aren't inflation adjusted numbers, so keep that in mind, I expect Tesla will be able to produce a base Model 3 and Y for around $25,000. Not sell them for, produce them for. I believe the next generation Tesla, the Robotaxi platform, they'll be able to produce for around $18,000. Again, that's not how much they'll be selling it for. That's how much it will cost them to produce. And not when it's first introduced, but once it's really scaled up to high volume, many millions of vehicles per year. And by the end of this decade, I won't be surprised if Tesla is able to produce a compelling electric vehicle with great features and functionality, super safe, very efficient, for around $12,000, $13,000. Again, that's not how much it will be sold for. I expect the sale price to be around maybe $18,000, give or take maybe $20,000. Again, not factoring in inflation. I don't believe most investors buy this. It seems ridiculous. How could you possibly produce a compelling vehicle by the end of this decade for less than many entry-level vehicles cost today? Simple. Electric vehicles have so few moving parts in them. In theory, if you just boil it down to the atoms, fundamentally speaking, it should be significantly cheaper to produce electric vehicles at scale than equivalent ICE vehicles. This is not up for debate. Of course, many people will argue this point, but they're people who just don't understand basic physics. If there's less shit going in there, there's less things going in the vehicle, all other things being equal, it's very important to grasp this. This is essential to Tesla's plan of getting to 20+ million vehicles sold per year. If they can't continue to drive the cost of their vehicles down, they're f***ed. They won't reach that goal. But if they can, which to me seems inevitable, as I said, EV is a brand new technology. Very little innovation in terms of driving costs down to manufacture these things has taken place yet. Economies of scale will make a big difference, so will innovations like Tesla's gigantic casting. The fact that Tesla's head of investor relations has now disclosed exact numbers, here's what it cost us at this point in time to manufacture a vehicle, here's what it costs now, gives us a great insight. If we use this, then engage our brains and do some thinking, we'll discover that Tesla has a very clear path to continue to drive the cost of their vehicles down significantly. Not a little bit, significantly.
Big advances there in design, or easier design to build these cars. Also, they're talking about an entry-level EV, like a hatchback. Musk had teased this before, and then Vika actually talked about it, saying they want to expand the product portfolio to kind of address the needs of buyers with a little bit less wealth. And then finally, they talked about the battery supply. They're actually making enough batteries to meet their internal demand for cars and the power walls that they make for homes. So
this was a very big insight. Tesla currently has enough battery cell supply to meet their production plans for both vehicles and battery storage. Massive moment. Obviously, this is a moving target. As Tesla continues to ramp production, they obviously need additional battery cell supply. But at the same time, Tesla's buying battery cells from other manufacturers. They're also ramping up production of their own 4680 cells. We could be at a tipping point, allowing Tesla's growth to go from ridiculous to absurd. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Ramping up there with the batteries. We heard about Nevada making more and more powertrains and batteries there. And then also we saw them kind of talk about having a lithium refinery, filing the application there in Texas for the Gulf Coast to actually make these materials for these batteries.
Will be interesting to see. Also, their stock price is up 10% over the last 6 months, still down year to date, but we certainly have seen it steadily climb, at least in the right direction over the last couple of months.
Yeah, and we're talking about, end of Q3 here, Musk kind of talking about, hey, all hands on deck, taking guys from the service department into sales to actually make these kind of sales happen before the quarter. So we'll see maybe a strong quarter for them.
Just a little bit of additional context on these comments from Martin, Tesla's head of investor relations. This from an article on Business Insider Trading. But just a few key highlights here. One of the quotes, Tesla uses about 90% of its battery cell supply for its electric vehicles and roughly 10% for its energy storage products at this point in time. Unfortunately, we don't have a direct transcript or even better, a recording of this event. Kind of sucks, but based on some things that some people who were allegedly there said they heard, quote, for the first time I can remember, we can access all the supply we need for both businesses, referring to vehicles and energy storage products. Like I said, watch out for that hypergrowth. Another quote here, this is the most important part of how this industry can grow in the future, referring to battery supply. Quote, if the industry can 10x from here, the supply chain will need to 10x as well. Now, there was a little bit of confusion about exactly what was said. Again, we don't have the transcript, we don't have a recording. This is all second or third hand information. But one thing that was clarified by Martin, Tesla's head of investor relations, just setting the record straight, that he never said anything about prior to a 2024 Robotaxi platform rollout, referring to Tesla's more affordable, let's call it $25,000 to $30,000 vehicle. In other words, Tesla won't be waiting until they've rolled out their Robotaxi network before introducing a more affordable vehicle. I mean, they may, but they didn't explicitly say this. In addition, in writing from Tesla's head of investor relations, quote, 2024 Robotaxi platform rollout. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, if Martin's willing to put this in writing on the internet, while clarifying some misinformation about Tesla, seems like a very, very, very strong indication that Tesla is aiming for a 2024 Robotaxi platform rollout. My interpretation of this tweet, Tesla is intending on rolling out their Robotaxi platform in 2024, and that is entirely independent of Tesla's more affordable vehicle. However, it could be the same thing. They may produce these vehicles and sell them to customers initially, and then eventually also be producing them for their own exclusive Robotaxi fleet. I don't know, I won't speculate, but I do just want to emphasize this actually aligns fairly closely with my own projections. For those unaware, my Tesla valuation model, which is available exclusively on Patreon to support us at the investor level and above, has the first paid Robotaxi fare taking place somewhere on planet Earth in 2024. And since we're already on Twitter, a quick warning from Gary Black, a big Tesla bull. My Tesla price target of $550 per share, just for context, Tesla today a little under $300 per share, would rank at the very top of the 48 Wall Street price targets. In Gary's opinion, some Tesla bulls in the Twitter community are offering price targets that are too optimistic. I caution new investors in Tesla stock based on these very high price targets to ask for analytical backup before investing, and these are wise words. Now, I want to be clear, everyone is entitled to their own opinions in terms of their price targets, but I think there's many people out there just clout chasing, trying to get attention, coming up with absurd price targets with nothing behind them at all, no valuation model, nothing. No, they just, I'm going to pull it out of my ass because it sounds cool. Gary has a great point. Then again, I also just want to clarify, if anyone's investing in any stocks based on price targets from somebody on the internet, they're a fucking moron. You got to do your own thinking, use your own brain and make your own decisions. If not, you're an absolute fucking moron. You deserve everything you get, including catastrophic financial losses for being a moron. Just the facts. If someone else's price targets are guiding your investing decisions, you are an idiot. They're a great sanity check. It's great to compare your assumptions to other people's assumptions. What do they think? What do they believe? What's their gross automotive margin? What's their 2026 production? When do they have the first Robotaxi fares taking place? These are very important things. So I'm not being dismissive. It's very helpful, at least I find, to look at assumptions of other people. What conclusions, what multiple are they using? Just to get an idea of where they're at versus where you're at. But being reliant upon other people's assumptions and making investing decisions on somebody else's assumption is a sign of unequivocal brain damage. Just for fun, let's have a look through endless price targets on Tesla stock, sorted highest to lowest. Remember, Gary Black, $550 per share, and I believe that's a 6 to 12 month price target. The highest on Wall Street is $530. New Street Research, shout out to Pierre Ferragu. Second highest is $495. This isn't a complete list of every single price target from Wall Street stock analysts, just the highest price targets. Notice a very quick drop off from $530 to $495 to $450 to $433 to $416, and now we're at $400. There's a very strong cluster of price targets in that $360 to $400 range, all, in my opinion, embarrassingly low. I suspect we'll see these increased multiple times in the coming months. And speaking of a sanity check on Tesla stock price targets, for those who don't have access to my price targets available on Patreon, my 2022 base case price target for Tesla stock, $418 per share as I record this. 2023 base case, as I record this, $661 per share. Just a quick caveat, Gary Black's $550 price target assumes zero Robotaxi. Gary has a very different view of how autonomy plays out. A discussion for another day. And now it's time to move on to Elon Musk versus Twitter.
Well, one stock that's actually bucking this downward trend that we're seeing in the market today is Twitter. Twitter barely holding on to gains, and that comes after shareholders there voting to approve Elon Musk's $44 billion offer to buy the social media company, while former security chief and whistleblower Peter Zatko, or Mudge, as he's known in hacker circles, testifies on Capitol Hill this afternoon. Joining us now with the latest on the hearing is Yahoo Finance's Alexis Keenan. And Alexis, what were the big takeaways for you from what you heard today?
So this testimony centered around two big themes. One was protection of user data, and the other was protection of national security by way of foreign bad actors going inside of Twitter, work against employees, and accessing user data. So not so much touching on those bot issues that we've talked so much about that are at the heart of some of Elon Musk's claim to try to get out of that $44 billion merger. So Zatko is saying that Twitter has misled the public, misled its own board, misled regulators.
This whistleblower, who obviously is just intentionally trying to blow up his career and destroy his reputation and is not actually saying things he genuinely believes to be true or to have occurred, has just suggested that Twitter misled who? Who didn't they mislead is more the question. Regulators, their own board, the public? Nothing to worry about here. I'm sure they wouldn't mislead people about bot numbers or anything like that. Would they?
By both fronts, both on the user privacy front as well as national security, by lax security controls. So let's take a listen to exactly how he explained that to the senators today.
I appear before you today to answer questions about information I submitted in written disclosures about cybersecurity concerns I observed while working at Twitter. My name is Peter Zatko, but I'm more often referred to by my online handle as Mudge. For 30 years, my mission has been to make the world better by making it more secure. From November 2020 until January 2022, I was a member of Twitter's executive team. In my role, I was responsible for information security, privacy engineering, physical security, information technology, and Twitter global support. I'm here today because Twitter leadership is misleading the public, lawmakers, regulators, and even its own board of directors.
Let's listen to that again. Really, pay very close attention.
I'm here today because Twitter leadership is misleading the public, lawmakers, regulators, and even its own board of directors.
This is a truly damning statement. Of course, maybe Mudge is just making it all up. If so, the real question would be, why do this?
What I discovered when I joined Twitter was that this enormously influential company was over a decade behind industry security standard. The company's cybersecurity failures make it vulnerable to exploitation, causing real harm to real people. And when an influential media platform can be compromised by teenagers, thieves, and spies, and the company repeatedly creates security problems on their own, this is a big deal for all of us. When I brought concrete evidence of these fundamental problems to the executive team and repeatedly sounded the alarm of the real risks associated with them, and these were problems brought to me by the engineers and employees of the company themselves, the executive team chose instead to mislead its board, shareholders, lawmakers, and the public instead of addressing them.
Once again, these are incredibly damning comments that also speak to the DNA of the company.
This leads to two obvious questions. Why did they do that? And what were the problems and vulnerabilities? And that's what I'm here to talk about. Why did they do that? To put it bluntly, Twitter leadership ignored its engineers because key parts of leadership lacked the competency to understand the scope of the problem.
Allow me to translate. People in key leaderships within Twitter, too dumb to even understand the problem.
But more importantly, their executive incentives led them to prioritize profits over security. Upton Sinclair famously said, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." This mentality is exactly what I saw at the executive level at Twitter.
Would this be an extremely awkward time to point out that Twitter executives are actually compensated based on keeping bot numbers below a certain threshold? And if you don't dig too deep, you can't find out there's more bots than there should be, and that means you get your bonus. By the way, I just made that whole thing up. It's not true, and you should go fact check me because it's definitely false, and I don't even know why I said it because it's not true. Because if it was true, I mean, that'd be fairly damning, and which would explain why Twitter continues to disclose the exact same copy and paster every fucking quarter. Less than 5% of monthly daily active users are bots, just like last quarter and the last quarter. Isn't it curious that it's always the exact same fucking copy paster, quarter after quarter? I don't know, for the last decade plus. Now, let me ask you a question. Would it not be reasonable that at least one quarter out of every one of the last 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 plus quarters in which Twitter has said, no, less than 5%, wouldn't it have been a little bit more reasonable if one quarter they said less than 4% this quarter or less than 6% this quarter? But no. Literally zero variation in the number of bots estimated on the website. Now, of course, if what I said before, which is fake and not true about people being compensated based on bot numbers, if that were actually true, it might be a bit of an explanation, huh? Despite all the anecdotal evidence suggesting there's more than 5% bots, we're gonna ignore that because if we don't ignore that, we're not going to get our bonuses. Something to consider.
So what are the problems I discovered? Two basic issues. They don't know what data they have, where it lives, or where it came from. And so, unsurprisingly, they can't protect it. And this leads to the second problem, which is the employees then have to have too much access to too much data and to too many systems. You can think of it this way, which is it doesn't matter who has keys if you don't have any locks on the doors. And this kind of vulnerability is not in the abstract. It's not far-fetched to say that an employee inside the company could take over the accounts of all of the senators in this room. Given the real harm to users and national security, I determined it was necessary to take on the personal and professional risk to myself and to my family of becoming a whistleblower. I did not make my whistleblower disclosures out of spite or to harm Twitter. Far from that. I continue to believe in the mission of the company and root for its success. But that success can only happen if the privacy and security of Twitter's users and the public are protected. In accepting an executive position at Twitter, I made a personal commitment to Mr. Dorsey, the board, the greater public, and myself that I would drive the changes needed at Twitter to protect the users, the platform, and democracy. That's what I'm continuing to do here today. I stand by the statements I made in my lawful disclosure, and I am here to answer any questions you may have about them.
I mean, this really is not a good look for Twitter. Now, there's a few things to discuss here. First of all, you could always argue, well, Mudge just made the whole thing up. That's why he's willing to bring all this heat and attention on himself and his family, making shit up because he just wants attention or he hates Twitter. Given the amount of people that have come out of the woodwork describing the character of Mudge himself, seems very unlikely this is the case. Now, the next thing to discuss. If Twitter has intentionally lied, misled, deceived, turned a blind eye on major matters such as security, is it possible this could give us an insight into how the company operates in general? You know, just turn a blind eye to things you don't really want to know about. Could that possibly explain why Twitter continues to state publicly to the SEC the same old copy-paste the line that less than 5%, that they estimate that less than 5% of their active users are bots? Could this potentially explain why literally every person, and I do use the word person to distinguish humans from bots, every single human using Twitter has an experience that's significantly more than 5% of the active users on the website are bots? Could this explain why everyone who's independently looked at bot figures on Twitter says, seems to be a lot more than 5% when we do our homework? Could this possibly explain why Twitter flat out refused to provide Elon Musk with the data stream that they use to determine the active number of bots on their website when he asked, hey guys, you're holding up the transaction here, I really want to buy Twitter, but you just need to substantiate how you get to that less than 5%. Or is this completely irrelevant and doesn't give us any insights whatsoever into how Twitter operates and where they may have misled and deceived in the past? Let's reframe this. Let's just imagine that your imaginary girlfriend was actually real. Let's just imagine that she had admitted to you that she'd cheated on her last boyfriend because he was a jerk, but she'd also cheated on her previous boyfriend because he also was a jerk, but she assures you she's definitely not cheating on you. She continues to be out late at night, working back in the office, and every time she comes home from being back working late in the office, her breath smells like cock. I'm not cheating on you, don't worry, nothing. I was just at the office, getting nailed by John, Tom, and Derek at the same time. Is this a point where you start to question, is it possible that she's deceiving me? Is it possible, given the track record of deception and the cover-ups and the lies, that maybe when she tells me she's not cheating on me, she comes home walking funny and smelling like pork sword? Is it possible that maybe she's deceiving me as well? Nah, that's a big stretch, isn't it? Yeah, everything's fine. I love you, baby.
So the senators did point out that Twitter's CEO was invited to this hearing, but chose not to attend. But the company spokesperson did tell Yahoo Finance this, saying today's hearing only confirms that Zatko's allegations are riddled with inconsistencies and inaccuracies, something we've heard the company say before. Now, to make more detail into these allegations, here's what Zatko says. He said Twitter cannot protect any of this data because its security posture, he says, is 10 years behind where it should be. He says that approximately half of employees can access user accounts, and that the company doesn't track that employee access through a technique that's called logging in these hacker circles and cybersecurity circles. He says that the testing for its security software is done in real time, and that is a no-no in the industry. It's not industry standard, so not a good reflection there on Twitter. Also, the company supposedly, according to Zatko, can't delete its own user data, so somewhere perhaps a treasure trove of information. So the big question, though, for Elon Musk is whether any of these claims are true. And if they are, does it either violate the merger agreement on terms of fraud that he's brought up, or does it cause a material adverse effect, something that's much more difficult to prove?
Yeah, and Alexis, we clearly know what Twitter thinks about these claims. I know you've been talking to some cybersecurity experts here today. What do they make of the claims and what we've heard from Zatko so far?
So what I'm hearing is that the claim that approximately 50% of Twitter's employees have access to user account data, that is a tremendous problem if it's true. One cybersecurity expert described it as, quote, beyond the pale, saying that more industry standard would be about 5%, give or take, depending on the type of company that's handling the data. But why that's important is that most of these social media companies, they do collect just a treasure trove of information on those of us who use the platforms. We're talking about phone numbers, IP addresses.
All the nudes you've received and or sent in your DMs, not even kidding. Guys, half the company can access your shit. Of course, they'd never download a copy of any of that stuff for their own personal use, would they? Nothing to worry about here either.
Possibly physical locations, addresses where you reside, web browsers, computer brands, just a cacophony of information that bad actors could get their hands on. So this was not a good reflection today for Twitter.
Understatement of the fucking century. And now some thoughts on Elon Musk getting distracted, his ability to focus and so on, from his biographer, Walter Isaacson. Now, for those of you who don't know, Isaacson was shadowing Elon Musk for a long period of time, currently writing a book. Don't know when it's coming out. Probably going to be thicker than a Tesla short seller, so keep that in mind. It should be a big one. He's famously written biographies of other folks, including Steve Jobs.
If you are a Twitter shareholder, you believe that you're entitled to the full $44 billion.
Correct.
I think that Elon thinks...
That he agreed to.
That he agreed to. I imagine Elon thinks that maybe they're entitled to $1 billion, walk away, and that's it, if that. And so it's somewhere in between there that we're talking about. I imagine if you're a Twitter board, you think to yourself, you know what? Unless you're going to get me within, $2 or $3 billion of that, why don't let it ride? Because the chances are, I think most legal experts think that it's in Twitter's interest ultimately. There may be bad laundry will come out during the trial, but that from a winning-losing perspective, Twitter has, in this case, the better hand. No?
I think Twitter has a better legal hand with this judge in Delaware who seems to say that. So, yes. And it's got a lot of downsides. And if you're a member of the Twitter board, your first thought should be, how do I get off this board? Your second thought is, where could we settle that's not going to create the most possible shareholder lawsuits? I mean, we're sitting here. You can look up and down the street. This happens. You'll see people running out of these buildings who are lawyers filing class action suits because this is a full employment act for lawyers, whatever they do when they settle. So it's not an easy settlement to see, but it's in both. I mean, it's like a lot of things in life. It's in both sides' interest, really, to find a price where you don't go to trial and have all the depositions and discovery.
But isn't this just a time value of money story? Because the truth is, I think that most of those directors on Twitter's board don't really care about the class action lawsuits. They all have D&O insurance, directors and officers insurance. They're covered. Nobody's arguing that they haven't fulfilled their fiduciary duty.
That would seem to me to be the most important part.
But I don't think anyone's going to look at them in that way. So,
and they want to sell. I mean, most of the people on that board don't have large.
They would like to sell at $44 billion, though.
Right. Of course they would. So yeah, they could let it ride and let's see what the judge decides. And if the judge says, "Man, you got to pay the exact amount,"
and this judge seems very predisposed to.
And then you get into something I'm not going to be able to give you the answer to because I'll just toss it out, which is I don't know what happens if the judge says, yes, you have to go through with it. I mean, what do they do? If he doesn't want to do it. And he could make it difficult. And if he does, but I think.
Is he planning on that?
No, I think that. Personally, I think that he's always of mixed minds, as most of us are. And there are times he wakes up in the morning and thinks of all the things he could do with Twitter and how great it could be, how exciting it would be. He, as a young person, helped create PayPal, as you know. And when Peter Thiel and others came in and there was a coup and he lost PayPal, he was trying to make PayPal into the great financial services bank that would do all your transactional needs. He could, if he wanted, try to turn Twitter into a payments platform, into a content micropayment platform, into a way in which you store money. And I think he dreams of, or has good visions of what he would do to fulfill what he had thought about as a kid by taking Twitter.
I actually agree. I don't think most people realize the scope and scale of Elon's Twitter turnaround plan. The guy's no idiot. He's got big ideas here. It's an existing asset. Elon can broaden and deepen what Twitter does in a really big way, massively increase monetization on the website, and create yet another money printing machine. Of course, the only reason he'll do that is because it's necessary to enable the platform to allow people to freely share their thoughts, opinions, and ideas without getting cancelled. In other words, Elon really wants to uphold the principles of free speech. In order to do so, he needs to buy this dumpster fire of a company, turn it around, turn it into a money printer, and that will then allow him to do what he needs to do regarding free speech. You notice Elon continues to do this. It'd be pretty cool to cover every square centimetre. For those of you who use a dumb measurement system, I'm not even going to explain what that is, of the planet. Every square centimetre of the planet Earth in broadband internet. But in order to do that, we need affordable rocket. Oh, maybe reusable rocket. Oh, wait, we can colonise Mars and do global internet with this one technology. What a great idea. I'm very smart. Let's do that. How can we get the entire world to transition to electric vehicles? Well, not everyone can afford them. Oh, I know. What if we solve autonomy and people can buy a car, it goes out and pays for itself in a year or two? What a great idea. How do I uphold the principle of free speech? Twitter's a bone. Okay, great. You understand, right? I genuinely believe Elon Musk desperately wants to buy Twitter. But he doesn't want to get fucked in the ass. Therefore, it really does boil down to this bot issue. I've said it a million times, but it's so important. If Twitter has been repeatedly committing securities fraud, lying to the public, lying to investors, deceiving people within the company about the number of bots, based on public statements, filings with the SEC quarter after quarter, Elon's turnaround plan, the numbers change. This is so material, it defies belief. All Elon's wanted from day one is just to confirm how Twitter is getting to this number, this estimate of less than 5% of daily active monetizable users, or whatever the fuck metric they use, being bots. He just wants to prove that. That's it. Just please substantiate these claims and I buy Twitter at the original price. But every step of the way, Twitter's put up roadblocks. Definitely not red flags at all. I really do get the sense that Twitter is hiding something. If they don't settle before this case is closed, I don't think it's going to be pretty for Twitter.
Doing that.
Walter, I bet he doesn't wake up too many mornings and think, wow, I'm really excited about being deposed again today and having these lawyers be able to drag me through all of these things.
I've never seen him. I've never seen him enthusiastic or happy about upcoming depositions.
Right.
And he's gone through them a lot,
got all
whether
the money
it's
in the
Solar
world,
City.
But these lawyers now have access to his time and control over him. That must, I mean, I just can't imagine being.
He is very good. We were talking off air, but late last night he's working on Raptor engines and the exact valves he would use. Because as you've noticed, valves are a problem on rocket engines, as we've seen the past month or two. He was working on exactly how you do the booster. He's able to sequentially focus in a way that I almost find, it's like he's half Vulcan or something out of, he and Dr. Spock.
I think Walter has a great point here. For those that don't know, we're talking about Spock, the Vulcan race on Star Trek. Now, here's something you may not have realized. Pure speculation on my part, but I think it's well founded. I think the entire race of Vulcans are actually just autistic. I also believe that Lieutenant Data, same shit. I ain't kidding. Whether or not this was a conscious decision or a coincidence, Data is autistic as fuck. Vulcans are autistic as fuck. And, well, Elon also on the spectrum.
Because, he doesn't wake up in the morning, this morning, because I've, been in contact. He's not waking up worrying about depositions. Right. He's worrying about valves in the new engine for the Starship.
That's why I just see this being a hassle. But the whistleblower, how does this potentially change things? Because even if they do reach a settlement, that's not going to stop the whistleblower from saying anything and everything. So,
well, it does devalue the company a bit, and it does show there's a whole lot more that could come out. So I think the whistleblower doesn't help Twitter at all, and it also doesn't help the current management.
Talk about an understatement. Whistleblower comes out, says Twitter lied, deceived, misled, covered things up, 10 years behind in terms of security, absolute clusterfuck of a company, doing so at great risk to his own reputation. As I said, it's not a good look. Just remember, Twitter equals cock breath. Of course, I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding. Everything's fine, and Twitter will soon be able to substantiate their claims that less than 5% of their daily active monetizable users are bots, right? Right. There's rarely a dull moment. Pretty amazing coincidence that the Trevor Meltdown Milton trial is happening at the exact same time as Elon Musk versus Twitter. I'm very curious. Let me know in the comments below. How do you think both of these trials play out, assuming there isn't a settlement? Hope you guys and girls have enjoyed the video. And lastly, don't forget, you can support the channel and unlock over 100 exclusive videos and up-to-date access to my Tesla stock price targets, which, yes, for the record, do actually have numbers behind them. Those are also available exclusively on Patreon, optionally at the investor support level and above. So if you'd like access to all of that content, you can join Patreon with the card in the corner or the link in the pinned comment. I'm Stephen Mark Ryan. This is Solving the Money Problem, and I love you all. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel and instantly unlock over 100 exclusive videos, plus my 10-year Tesla stock price targets and loads of other perks, including optional access to my Tesla valuation model, join our growing community of thousands of supporters on Patreon with the link in the pinned comment. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment themed merch in the merch store. And if you're still watching, you're awesome. Please let me know your thoughts on today's video in the comments below and click the card on screen now to watch the next video.